there's lots of obviously companies. So you're sort of, you're straddling across UK as well as international. So you're in all independent type schools. Sim straddles between maintained and independent, and some British school of the Netherlands. So some of those international schools. Do you see more of the sort of maintained challengers, I guess, in the maintained sector? Do you see more of those sort of challenger MISs potentially looking at international and independent schools and saying, actually, this is another segment that we should be entering more aggressively in, potentially?
I'm not sure. Obviously, that I think when you go into the international marketplace, you very much have to go in, with a strategy. And you certainly need to go in with a willingness to change and to show this flexibility. I think the difference with the international marketplace is that the uniqueness of independent schools gets amplified by location and culture. So your product has to be flexible to deal with that. We believe very strongly in the value of being face to face with people. It's really, we're not struggling at the moment. We've overcome, and we're finding different ways to do things, but we are very much missing that face to face element. We're very happy to get on a plane, go and see people, or we've got a network of people now operationally distributed internationally, and that's something we're missing, that being in front of people. And as soon as it's safe to do, we'll obviously be raring to go. I think some of us in our business are really struggling with not kind of getting used to being at home all the time and on a plane and traveling and all that sort of stuff. So if you go into that market, be prepared to have a culture change in your business and working across timings, getting on a plane, going to see people, and really going to see what those issues are, because everywhere is unique, everywhere's got some slight differences around it. I think ultimately the software does translate, particularly for schools that are UK orientated, but there are many different curriculums in the international marketplace. The UK curriculum is obviously a key one, but we've made our software to be agnostic across the American curriculum, international baccalaureate, and many of the other common curriculums that you see internationally. So you've got to be prepared to build an operation which can support schools across time zones, and you've got to be prepared to engage with your clients in different ways. You can't just support your clients only from the UK. You've got to be prepared to engage with people globally and see things from their perspective. And you've got to have an open and diverse culture in your business as well, which respects and embraces all the differences that we see. And if you don't enjoy that and kind of get it, then it's not just about, shall I sell our software to the Middle East? It's so much, I think. So I suppose it depends really, to answer your question, whether those companies to go down that road or not. But for us, that's what it's all about.
Okay. And do you find are there different sort of buying behaviours when you go internationally? Are they completely different from as far as you're concerned?
I mean, I think there are obviously different. You do, if you're buying from somebody that is a national of their country, there will be different customs and different ways of doing business. Ways of greeting each other, aspects of business just obviously differ, across the world. But I think we're lucky in that, coming from the UK, where there's so many schools that follow UK curriculum, and there's so many British teachers around the world, that very often, we're dealing with schools in English language. We're dealing with schools that running an international curriculum of some sort. So they have an outward looking view of the world, and you don't you're not coming up against I think major issues that you might do perhaps if you were, selling to government or, very much inward looking, people that are focused on their country and their cultures.
Yep.
So I think that's one of the nice aspects really of this marketplace, national marketplace, that you are dealing. Sometimes it feels like you're dealing with an independent school in the UK that's been lifted up and then put into Singapore or Malaysia or China or wherever it may be, and that's quite nice. But then you get the lovely different aspects of that, where all of the uniqueness of location and culture of kind of brought everything together. And yeah, it's a really nice industry to work in and a great marketplace to work in. So I think you just need to have that open view really of the world.
Sounds like a great place to work.
I'm selling it, am I? That's good. But we enjoy it. So that's good.
Superb. So if you're looking into the future, where do you see the MIS market going? Do you see any different strategies that you're going to take, or are you looking at doing different? Well, not just you, but where ultimately, I think MIS sometimes is sort of standing still a little bit, in my view. So my personal view is I think there's lots of Me Too sort of types of solutions there. Everyone's doing the same sort of functionality. So some may be doing it nicer than others, so some of the UI might be better, or some of the UX may be better. But ultimately, there's not much going on in the sense of real changes. We're not doing as much with data, I think, as potentially other markets are doing. What do you think in the sense of where do you see the market going for the MIS?
I think in the future you'll be able to do more within the MIS, whether that's driven by something else happening in the back end. I think and having that platform, there'll be more features and it will be easier for people to use, and it will assist the whole school more than it does now. It's interesting that you pick up on the point about data, because that's a place that I think there's lots of opportunity still, and we've seen that across business and perhaps less so education. So I think again this is where the MIS and what called the single source really start to matter, because I think the data in MIS will be used better in the future to spot trends. It will allow us to it will give us more information. We can make the best way to solve a problem and inform teachers and staff of what's going on. We haven't really heard a lot about AI type features, and whilst I think sometimes the word AI is a bit misplaced in technology, it's not really AI, but it's a nice marketing buzzword. It's sort of becoming a bit anonymous, I think, with data. It almost reminds me a little bit of cloud. What is cloud, and what is AI, all that sort of stuff. Yeah. But I think whether you call it AI or whatever, I would say workflow and dealing with the more common, currently fairly inefficient tasks will become a driving factor of MIS. I think MIS will become less easy to define as well. So what we like to put labels on things, whether it's MIS, and this is safeguarding software, this does this, but I think we're all trying to do more within our software as well, as I was saying. But I think the important thing is to try and keep that in one interface as much as possible to make it easier for the school, so there's a go-to place, perhaps more of a platform that drives things. It's always dangerous business predicting the future, but let's go anyway. But that's what I think.
No, I'm with you 100%. So I think I think the sort of business process flows. I agree. I think at the moment there's still there's too much manual inputting and too much button pressing.
Yeah.
And there needs to be far slicker flows than they currently are in most MISs anyway, in my view. I agree about the data. I think greater insights from data, putting some machine learning across it. I agree. I don't think that's AI, but understanding what's happening within the data to support.
Let's call it AI for marketing purposes. But
yeah.
I think it's about intelligence, isn't it? And whether it's artificial or not, doing things intelligently. So we haven't got people clicking lots of buttons and manually doing aspects of it. Let's make that all more efficient, set workflows. I think that's something that we're doing more of in Engage at the moment. That's when we go and see schools and show them that. That's the bit that they get excited about, perhaps more than the effect of the product at the moment, anyway.
And I think it comes back to the ecosystem, the bit about platform as well. So having an ecosystem where not only does the third parties able to sit on that platform, but also at the same time the data is there to be again sort of used for greater insights for the schools and the teachers, and also for their own third parties themselves. You know, the ability to understand, are people actually using the full extent of your software? You know, all that sort of intelligence that you can do for companies. I think that is also part of that sort of platform piece, in my view. I think, you know, again, it's all about more about being data driven to ensure that basically people are using the product right, and also the product's actually giving you information rather than you having to search for it, which I think sometimes happens as a school.
Yeah, it's just trying to speed things up, isn't it? Yeah, I do think all of that sort of stuff will get better in the future. I mean, for us, we I didn't mention it at the beginning of our discussion, but we've been acquired by the Education Horizons Group, which is an edtech group based out of Australia. And I think the exciting thing for me in that is I going to see more and more consolidation, you know, in schools of, you know, these platforms and stuff. And Education Horizons Group sees itself as an edtech consolidator of solutions, so it can help schools succeed, you know, with a common approach. And I think, you know, we will see less fragmentation overall of edtech product set, less need for schools to have lots of products to get what they feel they need, and there'll just be a greater trend towards software consolidation in general. And I do, you know, the exciting thing for me about you know, the acquisition of Education Horizons Group is they're very much, you know, I think a pioneer of that, and I think we're going to see more and more industry, you know, of consolidation going on. Education Horizons Group is very acquisitive, so I'm sure we'll be talking more in the future about, you know, having that bigger ecosystem, you know, within one company and one solution.
Yeah, it's going to be one of the questions I'm going to ask, but you know, there's definitely a sign in the maintain sector. So Matt's multi-academy trusts, especially big ones, are definitely looking at consolidating and almost having procurement partners rather than sort of trying to. They obviously want best of breed, but what they don't want is be paying over the odds for, you know, a lot of software, and also at the same time, you know, they want the ease of it as well. Really, that, you know, they want it all to be integrated. They want it all to flow. They want the data, you know, all the data needs to come to them so they can make decisions regarding whether they need to target resources and so on. So, you know, you can understand why they want a more consolidated picture around all their sort of products and solutions.
Definitely, and you know, we're seeing that internationally as well. I mean, we work with the International Schools Partnership, which have about schools globally, and you know, that they have, you know, most of those schools, you know, they're all over the world, but they use Engage as a single MIS across lots of different functional areas in order to bring all the data together into one place. And you know, when you do have that scale, you have to be able to pull data together, working in common ways, and you know, through developing a sort of cookie cutter approach for them as they've acquired schools and grown as a group. You know, we've been able to offer that single solution for them. So yeah, I only see it going more that way in the state sector as well, really, with multi-academy trust as well. I think you're absolutely right.
Okay, so finally, you know, what are your plans? What's Engage's plans? What's next? What's the big thing? So talk about acquisitions, but also what about the solution itself and markets?
Well, yeah, I think, you know, we're absolutely, you know, we'll always be focused, I think, on you know, independent schools, you know, and whatever happens in the future, and you know, if we go into other marketplaces. Certainly UK independent, you know, we still think we've got lots of work to do in that marketplace. we'll watch with interest what happens in the maintain sector as well, as we've said. But certainly internationally, the growth of international schools is obviously huge, and the areas that we're particularly focused on around the UAE, particularly, where we'll have a lot of depth in our focus. But there's lots of other countries, in the Middle Eastern region that we're also very interested with the growth that's going on, and the way that the actual sector is just getting better and better all the time. So other countries like Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, Oman, Kuwait. I'm sure I'll have missed one or two, but we're definitely interested in the Middle East. We'll continue to be so. We have certainly done much more in China over the last couple of years, and that's huge growth, of the private Chinese-owned international schools, and seeing lots of brand names coming out of the UK going into China as well. So that's going to be an area of focus, and there's lots of interest in countries in Southeast Asia, Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, Vietnam, amongst others that we're interested in as well. So I think we'll be focused on hotspots of the international sector, that's really the next sort of really exciting thing for us, as well, of course, as taking some of the other Education Horizons Group products internationally as well. Part of the reason that we've joined forces is we have a lot of international expertise, and actually they've got some fantastic products that at the moment are fairly common in the Australian domestic marketplace, but have a relevance to the international markets as well. So we'll continue to develop Engage. The focus, I think, internationally is really important to us, but also that expansion of being able to provide much more than we have done. We've got more in our toolbox, if you like, to be able to offer schools, and it's really interesting to be able to talk about that, whether it's teaching and learning with a product like Sector, or property and asset management with a product like Assetware from OmniLink within the EHG Group. So yeah, we've got some really exciting plans, and actually we're just as I said earlier, we'd love to get on a plane and start zooming around everywhere telling people all about it, but this is an opportunity to do so at the very least. So yeah, it's really good to be able to talk about these things. We're very much action people though, so we'd like to go and do it right now.
Excellent. Well, thanks for that. No, it looks, it sounds exciting. It looks. I look forward to seeing some of those solutions, that you've got in the Horizon Group for sure.